Welcome to the Town Hall for the President-elect candidates to be considered in the upcoming 2022 NSPS elections. I am your host, Tim Burch, NSPS Executive Director, and due to a technical snafu in beginning the actual Town Hall itself, we missed out on the introductions for the three candidates. So we'll give you a quick introduction to all three, and then we'll get on to the interviews. First up is Steve Gould of Maine. He is the current owner of Sackett and Brake Survey. Steve has been the NSPS governor for Maine, the area director for a number of years, and also currently serves as the chair of the education committee for NSPS. Next up is Danny Martinez. He is a senior survey project manager at Lamp Ryerson in Omaha, Nebraska. Danny is currently the NSPS director from Nebraska and is also the vice chair of the NSPS Foundation Board. Last is Davey Edwards. He is an assistant professor of surveying at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. He's also the director of the Texas Spatial Reference Center and vice president of Edwards Surveying. Davey also currently serves as the vice president pro temp. Now, on to our interviews. We'll clean all that up at the first, and we'll get that going. All right, here's the questions. We're going to just kind of roll through, and we'll mix it around a little bit. Steve, I'm going to go ahead and start back with you again. What was your motivation to make you to decide to run for this position and volunteer that much more for NSPS?
Well, I've kind of run the gamut of my NSPS career. I've been kind of started out down low and kind of worked my way up the ladder, and it just kind of worked out that this was the year to put my name in the hat in this position.
All right, very good. Danny, same question to you. What made you decide to throw your hat in the ring for this election?
I had done this one other time, and it was at the same year that Mark Sargent was elected, and he was the successor of that election. As I recall, it was pretty darn close. But he also was fortunate enough to be the leader to get us through the COVID era and spend an extra year during his leadership. But in watching that and the transition that I recently had, leaving my own small practice that I had and joining a larger firm, I know this commitment does require a large time commitment. It's also the success that that NSPS has had is dependent upon the people that have served and the staff that we have. So I just felt when I was asked that I'm in a position now to dedicate the time that's needed. I've been doing serving on NSPS since 2012 and have done various different committees, but mostly the most important one I felt was on XCOM. And I just feel like, okay, I've learned the ropes. I've seen the example set by some fortunate people they've had lead our association, and now is a good time.
Very good. Davey, same question. What's made you decide to continue on and throw your hat in the ring for this particular position?
I always like to participate and not just sit back and watch things happen. And, I helped out with, TSPS, went through, the various stages from being voted in second vice president all the way through past president on the executive committee for TSPS. And then I got into our state regulatory agency and, was still involved with NCSS. So when I started to be able to attend NSPS meetings and looking at the various committees to participate in and just to be active, I talked with Henry Kuhlum, who really is an encourager, and said I'd like to participate more. And then last spring, the opportunity came up to be, nominated for the vacancy for vice president. And they asked me if I'd be willing to do that. And I thought, well, if I'm going to participate, that's a good start. And I got elected for it. And over the last year of participating, in the executive committee and the membership, putting their trust in me and doing the work that we've been doing and representing really NSPS and the surveyors from the United States in various places. When asked if I wanted to continue and run for this position, I said yes, I would love that a lot, because I think, having continuity and moving forward is important. Not to say that the other two candidates couldn't, pick up the reins and move forward as well, but I was honored to continue to be able to participate.
All right, very good. All right. Let's go start this time with you, Danny. What do you feel is the biggest issue facing our organization and being able to take our organization forward?
The biggest issue, I think, is well known to most of us, and that is the retention and the recruitment of new surveyors, whether it be, or we concentrate most of the time at the younger age level, where we talk about whether we have survey programs that are that are working within various regions or various states, the recruitment and the educating of young people, even in high school or even younger than that, to attract them to our profession. But also, I feel the recruitment and potential that we have for even people that are beyond college a little ways, maybe in a related work field, and being able to recruit them. And like I mentioned, retention. We have, being part of a larger firm now, I'm seeing it more than I was just a year ago, but was well aware of it. And that is, we have survey technicians, and survey technicians sometimes aren't respected to the level they should be, nor do we include them. And that's what I'm looking for, as well as for NSPS, not to go beyond just the certified CST, but to look at some inclusion and some additional education and some additional way of bringing them into our fold, recognizing them, and building upon that. Because I know there are a lot of firms that watch survey technicians come and go, as it's a very competitive job market. But I feel that a healthy work environment and good mentoring helps to keep people around and to hopefully build that employee base that we're all competing for.
Exactly. Very good. Very good. Davey, what do you feel is, in your opinion, is the biggest issue that our organization faces moving forward?
It's not much different from what Danny brought up. Being in the academic side and seeing the students coming up, there are fewer numbers out there, and whether or not we can, keep the retention for the professionals as they age. And I think we need to work on getting information disseminated down through, the local schools, and working with the local or the state societies so that they can, get these students aware of our profession. And I think that's one of our biggest issues is self-promotion. And letting the public know, not only, in the schools, but, the kids' parents. They're the ones that pretty much influence a lot of these students to what, profession that they kind of look towards. But we also look at, things that are going on in different states legislatively that sometimes are not beneficial for the surveying profession, and to be able to educate different policymakers at different levels and making sure that the surveying profession is there to protect the public, and working with local groups on that as well. So a couple of things just to look at, and then getting the students involved with NSPS, make them feel like they also have a part in our society. They play a crucial role as we are aging, to bring in new ideas to how we can do the promotions that we need to do to the public. And also I agree with Danny on our paraprofessionals. I think there's a group there that support the professionals in the field and in the office, that we can help out as well, work on the CST program, and getting that out to the different professions to help them be more marketable, and I think that we can work on things that will help promote that through NSPS.
All right, very good. Steve,
I totally agree with what
you've seen a
Davey
lot with NSPS. What is our biggest issue going forward?
I mean, Davey and Dan, they hit it on the head. But I mean, I guess you can more sum it up is the word education. We need to educate people on who we do, on who we are, what we do, why we are important, why we are the national voice of the professional land surveyors. It's kind of simple, but it isn't. I mean, it's all broad, but we are getting hit on like the engineering side. It seems like the engineers want to take over surveying, but we just need to be strong in that aspect and let people know why we are needed, and that will have a trickle down effect. How we get to that, we've been trying. I've been with NSPS since 2005, and we've been making inroads to a lot of this stuff, and how we get there, I don't know. There's a lot of good people in this society that we can lean on each other, and we can push forward and make the education happen.
Agreed. Very good. All right, Davey, let's start with you this time. I've played around with this question because I even draw within it myself. But to you, in your opinion, what is the purpose of this organization and in leading the profession forward?
So, when I think about societies in general, and NSPS being, the voice of the profession, and we've done a really good job at doing that, I think, as far as when we work with congressional members, they always look towards NSPS as far as having that singular voice for the surveyors, and how certain bills may or may not affect the profession, or just to get an idea of what some of those bills are actually talking about. And so when I see NSPS, I see them as that face that the surveyors need. So having a unified voice, being that face, being a group of like-minded individuals from all the states and territories of the United States. And then to be on a broader, scale, to be that representative at an international through the FIG. And being able to host it here in the United States is going to be, great to, get the international feedback from, similar organizations from all over the world. And, just like in everything else, everybody kind of looks towards the United States as being that leader. Well, NSPS could really put on a good show for this, and I'm looking forward to it. But I think we're the face. That's kind of where I'm at on that.
Sure. Steve, now to you. You said you've been involved with the organization for quite a while. What is the purpose of this organization and its leadership of the profession?
I'll lean on Davey again. The word face is basically the true statement. We are the ones that we need to lead the profession in the education of legislation, and we need to protect our rights as land surveyors across the country with different governments, whether it be local or state. We can help influence, or not influence, but help every surveyor in that aspect on the legislative front. We need to be looking at new technologies and promoting those, like you do with your webinars and the weekly webinars that you do. That's very important. Just get the word out. If everyone took 15 minutes a week to talk to someone that isn't involved in surveying and tell them what you do, I mean, just think how many people you would influence, and especially if you told them that you were with NSPS. That's kind of where I see us as the face of land surveying.
Very good. Danny, same question. What is the purpose of this organization and leading the profession forward?
Stephen and Davey, I couldn't agree more. We are, like you said, the face. It's also, be the voice. And when we think about state societies and even states that have chapters or regional, chapters, it's a place where like professionals can come together, share ideas, share the same challenges, and work together to resolve those. And like Stephen said, it's a continuation of what we've heard, even when we first started in this profession, and that's the explaining to people what we do, that educating part. But I feel that one important thing for NSPS right now, and this all started back when I first started being the Nebraska director or governor at the time, was the effort and the work and the leadership that it took to get us to 100% membership. And then just in the last months, the inclusion of California now, and how NSPS, being the voice / face of the profession of land surveying within the United States, we truly now represent a majority of the surveyors. And in order to continue with that, and watching, and just my experience with serving on the NSPS board of directors, I think we really need to develop methods to include more of our state society members. And that might be the chair of a legislative / government affairs committee for the state of Colorado, or the Nebraska Education Committee chair, to where we can bring those individuals besides just the directors together. So there's more buy-in and understanding of what NSPS can really do for us all. Because a lot of times it's left for us directors to go back to our states, give reports, be that main contact person, but we're also the only person then that's really experiencing this potential that we have through NSPS to work together. So that's where I think NSPS is and the purpose of it.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, this position that you're running for, it's a little bit of not a hybrid, it's a little bit different, because typically you would start vice president through. So this commitment here is going to be a 3-year commitment. And so the question I want to raise to you is, we are currently in discussions throughout our profession and with NCSS of modifying licensure and looking at modular licensing through their PAC study and making some changes on how we get, how we get licensed, where we get licensed. What do you feel NSPS can bring to the table in discussing that, and where do we take licensing for the future, especially through these next 3 years of trying to put this all together? And Steve, we'll start with you. Where do you see licensing going, even potentially with going to a modular type of a licensing setup?
Right. I mean, that's a good question, and that's one that's been, in the past few years, has really come to the forefront. I know Texas, I believe, has had issues with their change of licensure, and we definitely need to be in the front to make sure that we do have licensure, for one. We as a society need to push for that. I think New Mexico was the other state that was under fire, and there might be some other ones. But as far as what we do, I believe that we have a white paper in place already. Maybe it's not licensure. I didn't expect this question, so I didn't study for it. But we need to do everything in our power to ensure licensure. Whether the modules will work or not, I don't know. I mean, the biggest thing with that is, and that's discussion we have in the New England states. New England states are pretty similar in how we practice surveying. There's little differences, but we as a New England society, or we meet at each meeting, I don't think that would happen just because of our board of licensures are so different. And our state governments are so different that they wouldn't allow it as far as licensure across state line. But if we can do that, great. I mean, if you're a bad surveyor and you're practicing in another state and you're not following the rules, you're going to get thumped. You're not going to be licensing. You're not going to be licensed in that state for too long. So I think that would take care of itself. So as far as a society, I think we should push for licensure as much as we can, as for wide as we can, I guess.
Very good. Danny, same to you. We're going to be considering some changing in testing and types of licensure, even though we've got 50 different licensing boards and 50 different jurisdictions. What do you see NSPS and how we help guide those decisions out in front going forward?
Yeah, this is not an easy topic, or one where we'll find a lot of people in agreement. And I do not have a firm opinion that I'm standing on. But NSPS, again, kind of going back to the previous question, is the place and the platform where the more professionals we have involved in NSPS, having these discussions and making sure we're moving forward, that's the only way we can really make ourselves relevant when it comes to these decisions, whether they're made by state governments, national testing. But I like Stephen said, there has to be a type of licensure that retains any type of boundary survey and the uniqueness of the region, the state, the area you're working in, public lands, colonial states, and just the different statutes, that land laws that affect, that change from state to state. And then we have the surveying that might be more construction related or mapping related. And I think I can see where if we don't participate and have those hard discussions, others outside our profession are going to move on and make decisions without us that could harm us. And not that this is something like FEMA coming up with the ELOMAs and relying on land surveyors to buy into that program and become a certified floodplain surveyor. Well, we didn't react that way with that vigor, and FEMA moved on. But now we have like Bart Craddy and that committee that are working forward and seeing if we can revitalize that, bring that back. GIS, we were stagnant in some of that. I'm not saying everybody was, but for a majority we were in that profession. That whole GIS area built on its own, and now we're, again, trying to work with them and bring ourselves to be more relevant, which is a welcomed. I just feel like if we don't move on this and make some changes, we may not be the ones helping to make those decisions.
Very good. Davey, I'll wrap it up with you. What do you think about the modular side, and how does NSPS get in front of making an educated decision on our leadership going forward? You would be part of something for the next several years, so where do we go with making that decision?
Right. I think Dan said it best. I don't think everybody's going to really agree to, what it looks like in the end. But NSPS can be, that platform that we can work through some of the issues that it's going to bring up. Being on the board here in Texas and being involved in NCSS, when this was first mentioned, Texas was strongly against having to take the PS exam, and we had our own exam. We've been examining in Texas for over 100 years, and to have a national exam really speak for surveying in Texas just really wasn't for us. But then when we merged in 2019 under the Sunset Act, we were strongly recommended to start taking the PS exam because every other state was doing it. And just because of that reason, that was the reason that now we're going to have to take the PS exam. So when the idea of the modules first was proposed, knowing that we were going to take it, I strongly, went in and started to participate with it. So I was involved with the EPS committee in preparing that and getting the divisions kind of split out to start working on the PAC studies and everything that was needed for each individual module. There's still a lot to be ironed out with it, but NSPS can be really active to see which states are going to need which modules, and then which states are going to need the assistance of maybe NSPS in legislation to help pass certain bills that are going to be needed to take the modules that are going to be required. Now, it's not a glove that one size fits all, and we're going to have to really consider that. And I think what Dan and Steve have both said was that NSPS can be that engine to get all the surveyors involved from the various jurisdictions, so that we can be a more unified voice to have something that would support what's I guess what the environment we're in the various state legislations to have a mobile license. There's going to be the nuances that some states like Texas, I know Oklahoma, that have state-specific exams. Your colonial states is different from your public land states, is different from Texas, different from other territories. That will always be. It's not the same as designing a bridge in Texas versus designing a bridge in Maine. The calculations may be there, but it's the law behind it that we're going to have to work through. And again, I agree. I think Danny hit the nail on the head talking about we can use NSPS to get those states together so we can start those discussions. And it's going to take all 3 years that we're going to be committed then some to get that done.
Exactly. Very good. Well, I guess I want to continue on this legislative theme a little bit. Danny, I'll come start with you. Government affairs is a big portion of what we do at the national level with directors, and takes a significant part of the activities of NSPS. In your opinion, how effective is NSPS with our Government Affairs Committee, and is there more we could be doing going forward in the legislative side to improve the profession?
I think our Government Affairs Committee has been under great leadership and for a number of years now. And the lobbyists that we have been working with, JB and John Palitato, they have been awesome. Not just trying to gloss it over and say we're fine there. So I think the representation we've had, the effectiveness, the tools that we've been able to give to our state, each director, when we, especially in April, when we do our, around April, when we do our lobby day or the day on the Hill, I think it's been very effective from that standpoint. And then the in-between work, the real work that gets done, I felt that that NSPS has been well represented, both from our executive officers that have gone through the, whether it's a past president, current president, and then the chair of the Government Affairs Committee. I believe some of the things we're just talking about now we've become more effective as we work as a group. So we represent and we truly are that national voice. I mean, we've touted that, that we've used that as the way we represent ourselves when we are meeting in front of our representatives since we've signed the MOUs and we've brought the states in at 100% membership. So I feel like it's been very productive. The topics we just covered, I think, as long as we're addressing those and being effective in coming to solutions or working on those, then we can be more effective there. If not, we won't be. But I feel we've been well represented.
Very good. Davey, same question to you. How effective do you think our government affairs has been, and what can we do more to make our advocacy even better for the profession?
Yeah, I agree with Dan. I think our Government Affairs Committee and our lobbyists, JB and them and his firm, have done a tremendous job for us. And the Day on the Hill has been probably one of the best ways for us to network with congressional members. And it does seem like we are getting recognized or getting that recognition to be that face that we were talking about earlier. When I mentioned that, certain congressional members seek NSPS to maybe answer some questions that they may have on certain bills that are kind of tied with surveying or geospatial data or GIS. They look kind of towards us, which has been beneficial. The ways that I could see we could probably do a little bit more is to really reach down into the local levels and make those connections with surveyors, with congressional members in specific positions of maybe leadership within committees in Washington. I was fortunate enough to talk with my congressional member who may be a benefit for the surveying profession because of his position in a committee. And I think if we work with our members in that level to make those connections with the constituents and their congressional member, it may help move that bar up to where we do become the singular voice going forward, that we get recognized, that we are across party lines and we're across jurisdictional lines with a very similar voice. But then NSPS can trickle down. As mentioned earlier, we can also help out with local governmental issues. Maybe being that liaison or the model to different legislative issues on a state level that maybe some regulatory boards are struggling coming up with languages and things like that, that NSPS can reach out to other states that may have had similar issues and how did they resolve it, and maybe getting those two groups together to help protect the public, which is our ultimate goal. So I see ways that we can build on the success that we've had so far with our governmental work.
All right, very good. Steve, back around to you. What do you think about our government affairs and what we're doing to date? And are there things that we can do better to promote and provide more advocacy for the profession?
Ever since about 2005, I can't remember when John Martinez took over, but his saying when he get up there and said, "It's a great day to be a land surveyor." It's kind of like my motto. It's kind of a survey geek thing, but I think there should be T-shirts made of that. So, or coffee cups. But the government affairs, I think that's one of the top things that we do. Sure, lobby day. I mean, when we first started it, we had low numbers. I mean, if we had 2 people from every state show up, at least 2 people, well, I mean, there's definitely more that we can do. But a lot of that on the upper end, that's going to take more money. So the PAC would have to get stronger. But that can be worked out. As far as working with the states, I know NSPS in the past has worked with the states, written letters and stuff like that. I think that's something that somehow we should profess that we do. NSPS does do that. And has done it. They've done it in Maine. Kurt has written a letter. I can't remember when it was, but it was several years ago. That helped in some legislation. And that's something that we should be professing. Overall, JB has done a phenomenal job. John Warren said in this past election that 100% of the congressional members that we backed got elected. So that was a huge thing on our end. So people are looking to us on the national level and on the legislative front, which is big, and we just need to continue that in a big way.
Well, very good. And shout out to John Warren, who is listening in, that yes, that it does take support from the members to support the PAC that allows JB to go into those circles. So thanks, John, for attending, and you're right. That's a lot of the things that we can do. Keep going forward. We're winding down in our time here, so if there are questions from the angry mob out there, we can throw them in the questions box. We can ask them as I'm finalizing these last couple of questions from my end. Davey, let's start with you. It keeps getting pushed off, but we are now on the verge of getting to a point where we're going to be working in new datums with NGS unveiling some stuff, and they're going to be doing some significant stuff at the FIG working week in May/June. The datums are a big deal for the surveying community going forward. What are your thoughts on how do we get the message out that there is change coming, and we need to get all of surveying and all the geospatial professions on board with the changes in these datums?
Yeah. So another hat that I wear is I'm also the director of the Texas Spatial Reference Center and a state coordinator for NGS. And we've been working a lot on educating over the last several years of the surveyors and the engineers and other geospatial professionals by putting on workshops where we invite NGS members to come and actually talk, give a brief 1 hour to 2 hour session on the datum change that's occurring. And those workshops are well attended, and it generates a lot of conversation and discussion as well. And it's maybe not as much as far as workshops that NSPS would put on, but we could also do virtual workshops or virtual interviews with members of NGS to help educate the surveyors who are going to be required for the datum shift. I know in Texas we also had to change some legislation in order to adjust our state plane coordinate system and add the international definition for the international foot since the U.S. survey foot expired. But there are ways that we can also help with those states that have to do the same thing with their legislation if needed. That's another way that NSPS can help with this new datum shift. And just to be maybe a resource, we could put things upon our website that surveyors can go to. Say if me here in Texas gets a project in a different state and I'm not as familiar with their state plane coordinate system with the new low distortion projections, maybe we can help with getting them that information, whether it be a dashboard that they can just download that information from, or at least a link to a state coordinator for NGS in that state. But I think there are ways that we can assist the survey community on that.
Good. Steve, same question. We've got change in the air with state plane coordinates and datum shifts from a static to a dynamic datum. What's your thoughts on getting that message out and convincing the geospatial/surveying profession we need to be in front of it?
Right, and then, of course, we've been kind of planning this for a while, and we got lucky. Well, not lucky. COVID was a bad thing, but I mean, COVID pushed everything back. So here we are finally, and it looks like it really is going to happen. So I would hope in the next 3 years that we definitely have a committee on the transition, and hopefully have somebody write a white paper on what the changes are going to be and how it's going to affect the surveyors. I think that's huge. I don't think most surveyors realize that there probably is going to be a change in what you do. It might be little and it might be big in some areas, but there's going to be certain things that as surveyors we're asked to do that we're going to have to do differently because of this. And that needs to be explained to a lot of people. So I think we need to be heavily involved in having a committee be right in front of that.
All right, very good. Danny, to you. We've got changes, and what do you think? How do we stay in front of it and really make sure that the surveying profession looks good staying in front of it and doing the right things?
Well, again, Stephen and Davey, you have great responses to that. This is another opportunity. Is there a problem? Well, is someone creating a problem for us? Some might agree or disagree with this datum change, but it's an opportunity for us, and NSPS is the tool, the way we can do this. I see us, like Davey mentioned, whether it's workshops, webinars, using and relying on those relationships like our government affairs does with our elected officials, relying on those relationships with NGS and other like professionals that are working on this, then being able to have discussions and to develop tools and promote the changes. And for us as NSPS, and then to be able to share that with our state societies and even involve some of the people like Davey was mentioning his role there in Texas, but to get a hold of whether it's a state coordinator or like in Nebraska, our state surveyor is a quite accomplished GIS professional, where we've developed or the state's developed low distortion networks for each of the counties. Again, that's a different challenge, but to take this information back to our states, include those individuals in these discussions, and then that'll equip each state and region on how to best handle this change, this conversion. And if we do this properly, we can then be like we are the problem solvers when two people are disputing over a property line or resolving an easement issue, whatever. We could be that person, that local professional helping out our county or municipal GIS individuals, the engineer that we work with that's having challenges with gathering data, whatever it might be that they're confronted with that they have no idea how to handle. So I think NSPS is the key role here for us to plays a key role in us being able to come out of this and be a problem solver for others.
Very good. All right, I'm going to go into my last question. If there's anybody out there in the peanut gallery that's got any questions they want to ask, I would throw them up there now. Otherwise, I'm just going to throw out my last question, trying to be cognizant of everybody's time. Steve, I'm going to start with you. The future of surveying seems to be the hot button question. How does it look to you?
The future of surveying, it's technology is going to basically rule it as much as it can. The laws will definitely, they'll still be there, but the way we practice in the fields, that will greatly change. I attended seminars 20-something years ago, and we had people from MIT come and talk to us about basically LiDAR and little drones. This was 20-something years ago, and here we are, and it's happening. We have to adapt because there's less of us. So there's going to be less of us doing more. So technology, it has to be there, or things will not get done. In the past few years, the Young Surveyors Network, that's been a huge plus for this society. And it was great to see all these young surveyors come into the profession like they are. So I'm convinced that our numbers will be there. There'll just be a lot less of us in the next 10 to 15 years. Between that and the technology that's coming forward, I think we'll be set.
Very good. Danny, future of surveying. How does it look going from small business owner to a larger business now, to a different future?
It looks good. We all know the challenges when it comes to workforce, but I feel like there are opportunities here that we can take advantage of. I apologize, my screen just went somewhere else as a calendar reminder pop up. Sorry about that. But it's going to take a lot of work, and that work's been happening. But now that again, I mentioned California earlier, but we represent truly a majority of the land surveyors, professionally licensed land surveyors in the United States. The opportunity is there. And I think that's the ever-evolving workforce development aspect of it, and working together to come up with tools for recruitment and retention. The same with education that both Steve and Davey mentioned, and that I work with some professionals that didn't even start out in the land surveying degrees, but through geography and mathematics, somehow found their way here. And I see there's opportunities for us to evolve that even more, at least in my opinion, where working with universities within your own region or state that offers engineering programs that maybe have some surveying courses within that, and then even on the GIS side, because I think it's really going to take an educated workforce. And again, I'm not trying to say that by just experience alone and working with a land surveyor, you shouldn't be allowed to obtain licensure. But I think we really need to attract those young professionals because we are proud of our profession. And Steve mentioned this, we need to tell people about it, but they also need to see what it is and why it's attractive. And technology kind of helps do that. So if we, instead of reacting to technology, if we're on the forefront of development of some of it and becoming a cooperative with the GIS professionals and others that rely on us to be problem solvers, I think that only is going to push us and propel us down, down the road in the future and hold us to a profession instead of a workforce that's a necessary evil because we have to hire a land surveyor, but we can't find one in our area. I think the opportunities are there for us to do that.
Very good. Davey, same question. Future surveying. How is it looking from your perspective?
Well, surveyors are expert in measuring, and I grew up, a son of a surveyor, and I grew up around it, and I've seen, I've actually pulled chain all the way up to using, drones, and we've evolved, our profession's evolved. We have become more, in that line of thinking of, we are historians, we are artists, we are lawyers, we are, mathematicians, we are geographers. We're so well-rounded in our profession that we can be inclusive of, what Dan was saying, different educational backgrounds. And to be able to promote that, NSPS is in a prime position to push, education to not only see surveying profession as a certain level of, hate to say just professionalism because it's more than that, but to be able to have students acknowledge that surveying is just as a good a profession as engineering is, or as being a doctor or an architect or a lawyer, and they seek that, and I think we can help with that. But beyond the education side, surveying reaches so many different fields that nobody realizes. We have it in our cars, we have it on our phone, we have it, walking down every street, and just seeing different ways that surveyors touch every aspect of our communities. And we can be involved in that as well. And that's educating our public, or educating legislation of what it is we do. And I see in the background on your monitor there is, the getting kids into surveying. We can be that voice from kindergarten all the way up to old age. And I think with technology, we have the capability of doing that. And that's the way I see NSPS and surveying growing into the future. And I'm kind of glad that I've been involved as much as I have in the short term that I have, and I want to continue that. And that's whether either one of these two guys gets elected, still want to continue with it. And I think NSPS is going to be in the forefront of that.
Very good. Well, just like yesterday, I will say I really wish that the American political system was as civil as these two races have been, because bottom line is we're all fighting for the same things. We're all wanting the best for the profession and everything going forward. So I'd like to thank all three of you for making the time and taking and really making the effort to make the profession and our organization that much better. So I want to thank you for doing this. And just a last final wrap up that the ballots will be emailed. A link will be emailed to everyone on Thursday, December 1st. There'll be some reminders coming out on the 7th and the 14th, but you won't need them because you're going to hit that on the 1st and make your selections and go from there. But this is being recorded. We'll get this up on YouTube. The podcasts are out there with individual interviews as well. And for those who haven't seen it, please go out and check your emails for our bulletin, the Surveyor Says, the NSPS bulletin that just came out. All the information about the candidates as well. So please vote. We need to show how democracy truly works. And we'll see you again next time. Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.